Here with Dr. Catherine Pound, Chair of the CPS Nutrition and Gastroenterology Committee and the lead author of a new CPS statement on donor human milk. So welcome, Dr. Pound.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Just to get started, we know this statement replaces CPS guidance from 2010. Can you give us an idea of what's changed, why you felt like it was time to update the guidelines?
Sure. Well, we didn't just update the guidelines, we added a whole new portion, right? Because if you look at the statement from 2010, it really only addressed pasteurized human donor milk, which is what we see typically in the hospital or prescribed to preterm babies. But what we wanted to add in there was the non-pasteurized human donor milk, or otherwise known as milk sharing, which is informal milk sharing, because this is a trend that we are seeing more and more, and we thought it was important for pediatricians and other physicians to be aware of it.
And are there any common misconceptions about donor milk or milk sharing that you want to clear up?
Yeah, so one of the misconceptions that I think we hear often is that using pasteurized donor milk in the neonatal units will discourage mothers from using their own breast milk. But what we're seeing actually through studies is that that's not what happens at all. And I think the concern is if you give a mother milk from a bank, then she won't have the motivation to produce her own milk. But really what happens is that pasteurized donor milk is used when a mother, for whatever reason, can't supply breast milk to her infant at the time, but the goal is still for her to go back to using her own milk. And what we're seeing through studies is that in units that use pasteurized human milk, the rate of breastfeeding at discharge is higher than in units that don't. So I think that's a really important one to remember and why it's so important.
Definitely, that's very interesting and important research being done there. So if there was one takeaway for healthcare providers, what would you hope they take from your new guidance?
I think there's a couple, actually, because we're really addressing two important topics here, and they're quite, even though they're all related to breast milk, they're two different topics, right? One is the pasteurized human milk, which we use for usually premature or sick infants, or infants that are in the hospital that can't get their mother's own milk. So I think the message there is really to remember how important it is for preterm infants, and that it addresses so many issues, whether it's from a health perspective, like it is better for the child's health. We know that it decreases the risk of necrotizing enterocolitis. So to really remember that pasteurized human milk is really important for this population. But the other point that we're bringing, the new point that we're bringing in this statement, is that informal milk sharing happens, and that we need to ask about it.